Hello, TOEFL students. Today, we'll talk about Part C of the listening section of the TOEFL test. The listening section of the TOEFL test has 3 parts. Part A has 30 short conversations. Part B has 2 long conversations. And Part C has 3 longer talks. It is very common for the long talks in Part C to be shortened versions of lectures from courses taught in American colleges and universities. The strategies for Parts B and C are the same. Before you listen to the audio recording, you should anticipate the topic. Then look through the questions and try to anticipate the questions. Once the audio has started, you should determine the topic by listening closely to the first few lines. Then you want to listen for who, what, when, and where. Listen for the answers in order. And remember, for parts B and C, answers often sound the same as what is said on the recording. For part A, you need to avoid similar sounds. But for part B and C, similar sounds are good. Finally, you should read the answers and listen at the same time, because this is a timed test and you do not have unlimited time. So, for part B and C, before the recording begins, you should read over the answers to the questions and anticipate the topics you will hear and anticipate the questions. This will help you when you're listening to understand. Let's do this together for the first 5 questions from your assignment today. The first thing that you should do is look through the answers for key words that help you guess the topic of the conversation. Let's do that here for the first 5 questions. There are a lot of words in these answers that can help us guess the topic. Look, there are a lot of words about biology labs, and there are a lot of words related to school, like class, exams, and assignments. So before we even hear the audio, that the topic for this talk will be school life and a biology lab. Now we can look at the answers for each question and try to determine what type of question it will be. Number 1, all of the answers have a time during the lab, in the group, on the first day, before the final exam. So we can guess that number 1 is probably a when question. Number 2. Here, the answers all have a frequency. Once a week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week, for 15 hours. So this will probably be a how often question. Number 3. These answers all start with an action: to do, to take, to study, to read. So number 3 is probably a what question. Number 4. All the answer options here are nouns. So the question is probably a what question. Just like number 4, the answer options for number 5 are nouns. So once again, we can guess that number 5 is probably a what question. In a moment, we will listen to the audio recording for these questions. But first, let's review the strategies that you should be using while you are listening. While you're listening, you should listen for the topic in the first few lines. Then try to draw conclusions about the situation. Think about who, what, when, and where. Finally, you're going to listen for the answers in order. All right, are you ready? Listen to this recording and follow along with the questions. Try to find the correct answer for each question before I go over the answers.
Questions 1 through 5. Listen to a talk given by a professor.
Welcome to Biology 101. I'm Professor Martin, and this is your laboratory assistant, Peter Smith. This course meets twice a week for lecture and once a week for laboratory assignments. The text for this course is Introduction to Biological Sciences by Abramson. You should get the text and read the first chapter before the next class. You will also need to get the laboratory manual that accompanies the text. I've passed out a copy of the course syllabus. This syllabus lists the reading assignments and exam dates. Note that we will cover one chapter a week for each of the next 15 weeks in the semester, and there will be 3 exams throughout the course. Grades in this course are based on your exam grades and your grades on the laboratory assignments. Are there any questions?
Number 1. When does this talk probably take place? Number 2. How often will Professor Martin give lectures? Number 3. What is the assignment for the next class? Number 4. What information is given in the syllabus? Number 5. What will the professor use to determine the final course grades?
Okay, are you ready to see how you did? This is what you just heard. So, number 1. When does this talk probably take place? The answer to this question is in the first line. The professor starts by saying Welcome to Biology 101. Then she introduces herself and gives her name and the laboratory assistant's name. So we can make an educated guess that the answer to number 1 is C, cat, on the first day of class. The professor probably does not introduce herself and give the name of the laboratory assistant every day. She's only doing it on the first day of class because the students are new to the class. Number 2. How often will Professor Martin give lectures? The answer to this is in the third sentence. This course meets twice a week for lecture and once a week for laboratory assignments. There are 2 frequencies here, but number 2 asked about the lectures. So the answer is B, boy, 2 times a week. Number 3. What is the assignment for the next class? The answer to this question is right here. She said, read the first chapter before the next class. So the answer is D, dog, to read 1 chapter of the text. Number 4. What information is given in the syllabus? Here, she said, this syllabus lists the reading assignments and exam dates. So the answer to number 4 is C, cat, reading assignments. The answer is the exact same wording as what you heard. Because remember, in part B and C, similar sounds are a good thing. The answer often sounds very similar to what you heard. Finally, number 5. What will the professor use to determine the final course grade? The answer to this question was at the end of the recording. Grades in this course are based on your exam grades and your grades on the laboratory assignments. So the answer to number 5 is A, apple, exams and lab work. Your assignment for today is to do the same thing for the next 2 long talks. Remember to look at the answers before you start listening. Try to make predictions about the topic and the type of question. Then, while you're listening, listen for the topic in the beginning and listen for the answers in order. As always, if you have any questions or if you need some help, send me a message and I will help you. Good luck!